Good morning, folks. Welcome. Good morning. Thank you. Thank you. Welcome to Emerson Unitarian Universalist Church. My name is the Reverend Ed Proulx, and I am the minister here, and I'm very happy to see all of you here with us on this beautiful first Sunday in March. Can you believe it's March already? It feels like it was just Thanksgiving 2 minutes ago, but thank you. All of you to come, and thank you for being here, and we enjoy it when you're able to be with us. It's such a pleasure to bring this beloved community together. We here at Emerson, we will start our service with important announcements that you need to know, and we have a couple of guest announcers this morning. I would like to start with Marcy Collier, who is going to talk to us about our auction.
Hello, I'm Marcy Collier, and I'm here on behalf of the 2025 Auction Committee, and I am really excited about this year's auction. We are going old school, which means we're not dealing with 32 auctions. You don't have to make an online account. You don't have to deal with anything online if you don't want to. I'm the point person to register your donation. There will be a QR code, but if you don't want to deal with that, I can help you with that. It is all going to be silent auction. It's going to be in person, not online. We will have bid sheets available for a couple of weeks before the auction, so you don't have to be present to bid, but we highly recommend that you come and join in on all of the fun. There will be no live auction at all. It's all silent auction, and the emphasis is on the fun party, and we have some really great games planned, so I hope you'll plan to join us on May 17th in Westwood Hall at 6 p.m. for a really, really fun evening. Thanks.
See? And now we have from the Wirt Road Fellowship, is that what it's officially called, the Wirt Road Fellowship? The Unitarian Universalist Fellowship on Wirt Road of Houston, we have Leanne Williamson, who's going to talk about their music festival, which we have some folks performing at their music festival this year, right?
Yes, hi. I'm Leanna Williamson. I'm with the Unitarian Fellowship of Houston, and I wanted to come and personally invite you to the Music Fest on March 22nd. It's from 2 p.m. to 9 p.m. There'll be free food, there's local bands, and I understand that there's going to be some members from your church playing. You can bring your children, your coolers, your pets, but if you bring your pets, keep them on a leash. And we might have a food truck. We're not sure yet. We're trying to get one. But I also want to let you know that we're having it in memory of one of our members at the church that actually passed away. His name is Harold Rude, and he was very active in our church. But one of the things, he always worked on the music fest. He would always work on the stage. So he was there one Saturday putting a tarp over the stage so that the musicians would be cool in the sun, and he was by himself, and the ladder collapsed, and he fell, and he broke his neck. He lived 3 months as a quadriplegic and then passed away. So this year it's in memory of Harold. So if you guys could come and support us, it would really mean a lot. And I was hoping that if I came and asked you personally, that you guys might want to come. And I have brochures, so after the service, I would be glad to give you one if you would like one. Thank you.
Is there a fee?
No.
There's no fee.
It's free. The food is free. Oh, and also, if you make crafts or have something you want to sell, you can come and bring a table and set up your items. So we have vendors too, whoever wants to be a vendor, and everything is free.
March 22nd.
March 22nd, and I have some brochures that I'll give you after the service, so you can remember all this. Okay, thank you, guys.
We went last year. Where's Francine?
That's what I heard.
We went last year. We played Frisbee, and it was great fun. There was something else going. We can't go this year. We're going to be away. So we hope all of y'all can go and play Frisbee and listen to some good music.
And good music. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend Ed.
Thank you for coming, Leanne. Okay, and a couple of quick announcements. Lunch Bunch today is canceled because we're doing and this sort of slipped by a lot of people, so I want to invite you specifically to stay after church for about 1 hour. We're going to have a State of the Church address outside of the service. So if you're a member or very interested in what's going on at Emerson, we would love for you to stay and listen to this presentation so that you know it's a forward-looking presentation. But between services and that presentation, the State of the Church, we will have coffee and conversation out there. We're going to do a 15-minute pause. And then, so that if you're still a little new around here, you can get to meet people and socialize and all that stuff. And Lunch Bunch will be back next week. And then come in here and listen to the State of the Church address. And if you are still a little new around here and would like to get to know a little bit more about us, there is a yellow card in the pew. Feel free to fill that card out. That will put you on our mailing list, and we will send you 2 emails per week to let you know what is going on. And the folks that run the cards want me to point out that you really have to fill in the front and the back of the card. So, with all of the announcements done, I now invite, we have our special guests with us today. Thank you very much for coming. And I just asked you the name of the band 3 minutes ago, and I can't. What I did was I made a joke when I met you guys. The name of the band is what? It's in. He's forgotten too, right? Banished Misfortune, and I kept making a joke with different names, and now I can't remember the actual name to save my life. So, Banished Misfortune, are you playing our prelude? Are you playing? Okay. So we invite you now to bring us into the formal part of our service with our prelude.
morning. Excuse me. I'm Jill Rose, and I am the worship associate this morning. You often will see me in choir, which is a beloved place to be, and we welcome anybody who even would like to join us. You don't even really have to know how to sing, as I am an example. And I'm also an office volunteer. At this point, we transition to our sacred time together, a time of reverence, a time of attention, a time of intention. I invite you to join in this time with us, marked by the lighting of our chalice flame. I ask Anne May to come forward and light our chalice flame in the sanctuary, and those of you at home to light a candle where you are to join in spirit. We mark this sacred time with words, important words that bring us into a time of collective intention. As we light our chalice flame here in the sanctuary, I invite those of you joining, I'm sorry, this is redundant, so I will skip that redundant part. Each week we hear words of wisdom when we light our chalice, and this week those words come from Mohandas Gandhi. Mohandas Gandhi, who lived in 1869 until 1948, was an Indian lawyer, anti-colonial nationalist, and a political ethicist. Better known by the honorific title Mahatma. And, you know, I always got confused between Mohandas and Mahatma, so I looked up Mahatma, and it means a person honored for high-mindedness, wisdom, and selflessness. So now I understand how that name works. Gandhi employed nonviolent resistance to lead the successful campaign for India's independence from British rule. So please join me in reading these words as they appear together, or read these words together as they appear on the screen. Many people, especially ignorant people, want to punish you for speaking the truth, for being correct, for being you. Never apologize for being correct or for being years ahead of your time. If you are right and you know it, speak your mind. Speak your mind. Even if you are a minority of one, the truth is still the truth. Emerson is a beloved community of faith, reason, and affection. We welcome all to grow in mind and spirit as we build a better world. We do this by gathering to seek, learn, and grow, and in the course of our work, to promote love among each other, our congregation, and the wider community here in Houston. Whether you're here in the sanctuary or joining us on Zoom or on Facebook, we welcome you. No matter where you are in your personal spiritual journey, we invite you to live, learn, love, and grow with us. As a covenantal community, we aspire to promote love, fellowship, and social justice, as well as support for your personal growth. Please join me in our welcoming words. The words are on the screen. Whoever you are, wherever you find from, wherever you find yourself on your life's journey, whichever your pronouns, whether you've walked in or rolled in or dialed in, whomever you love, you are welcome here. And now we have a presentation of this week in Unitarian Universalist history with Richard Cummins. Thank you, Richard.
Thank you, Jill. Good morning.
Good morning.
For the week of February 24th through today, March 2nd, I've selected 2 items. On the 28th of February in the year 1901, Linus Carl Pauling was born in Portland, Oregon. He was considered a genius in college and became an expert on X-ray diffraction, analyzing the spacing and orientation of atoms in crystalline materials. He helped integrate chemistry with quantum theory and founded the discipline now known as molecular biology. He became an assistant professor of theoretical chemistry at Caltech in 1927 and a full professor in 1931. He published important works in chemistry and quantum mechanics. President Harry Truman awarded him the Medal of Merit for his contribution to the war effort. When the atomic bomb was developed, Pauling became a pacifist. He joined First Unitarian Church in Los Angeles. In 1945, he received the Nobel Prize for Chemistry, and in 1973, he created the Linus Pauling Institute of Science and Medicine. Other honors included the National Medal of Honor from President Ford in 1960 and the International Lenin Peace Prize, 1971. He died on August 19, 1994, at the age of 93. And this item was read this morning in the RE class, but it really is very pivotal to our community. On today's date, in 1401, the English Parliament passed the law De Heretico Convertendo, which in English means on the burning of heretics, which condemned all heretics to death at the stake. It was the first law in England regulating dissenting religion and was not abolished until 1677. Even after the law was struck down, it was a criminal offense to hold Unitarian views or worship, though the penalties were not often enforced. Reverend Ed?
Well, I'm happy for that, personally. That whole burning at the stake sounds dreadful. It is important that we acknowledge that our history here in Houston and our history in this country is shared and oftentimes harmful. Our congregation's buildings are situated on the home of the Karankawa and the Atakapa peoples who lived here for almost 2,000 years before European settlers arrived and very nearly brought out their end. May we, in the course of our work, recognize, uplift, and support Indigenous voices and communities in our work as a congregation. And now for our opening words. Our opening words are words that we hear when we are gathered, and they come from one of our 6 Unitarian Universalist sources. Today we hear from Abigail Adams. Abigail Adams was the wife of the 2nd President of the United States, John Adams, and she was the mother of the United States' 6th President, John Quincy Adams, although she died in 1818, so she never did see her son become president. Here are her words for your reflection this morning. She says, "I acknowledge myself a Unitarian, believing that the Father alone is the supreme God, and that Jesus derived his being and all his powers and all his honors from the Father. There is not any reasoning which can convince me, contrary to my senses, that 3 is 1 and 1 is 3. And now, with your chalices lit at home and here on Bering Street, and our hearts and our minds centered, we invite you to join us in celebrating by singing a hymn. You may stand if you are comfortable. You may stay seated either way. Please help us sing our first hymn, which is number 145 in the gray hymnal. The words will be on your screen. Tranquil Streams.
Shall be
Now I invite Jill, and I just want to point out, before Jill, you bring us into our offertory, I wanted to point out that our choir director is sick, Julia. So we have the wonderful Ariel pinch hitting today. So thank you very much to Ariel. Jill.
Each time we gather, we ask your help in fulfilling this church's mission. The success of this church and of the principles we support are made it possible by the work of our members and friends and by your financial support. We honor that support by striving to live the mission of this place fully and wholeheartedly. Here at Emerson, this collection does not go to funding our work, which is funded through pledges of financial support. This collection each week goes to fund the work of important partners of Emerson, who, in our opinion, live out our Unitarian Universalist values in our community and in the world beyond our community. The act of giving our financial support is both a transformative spiritual act and one way we live our values. 75% of the offering today will go to March's Share the Plate recipient, the International Convocation of UU Women. The International Convocation of Unitarian Universalist Women, that does business as the International Women's Convocation, or IWC, is a nonprofit organization in special consultative status with the United Nations Economic and Social Council, focusing on global women's rights and empowerment. They have sent a video, which we will play today in lieu of music during our offering this morning. The remaining 25% of today's offering will go to Interfaith Ministries, Meals on Wheels, which provides thousands of meals every day to Houston's homebound seniors. And that is a long time, a place where we have given funds. You can go to our webpage for online giving, put cash or a check in our offering basket, or mail a check to the church. And during the offering, children who want to attend the Sunday school classes, the RE classes, may follow Francine. I see Francine to their classrooms. And we have the video.
I wish you a warm welcome to Transylvania, the birthplace of Unitarianism. We are very happy to see you all here and ready to work, collaborate, create, and connect together in the next 3 days.
The theme of the convocation is weaving the tapestry of peace and new perspectives. Connect, collaborate, create. The one thing that is missing most dramatically in our world, in all its dimensions, is P-E-A-C-E, peace. joining together of these squares, all brought here by women from different parts of the world, I think beautifully illustrates the sub-theme of this convocation, which is to connect, collaborate, create. And the completed quilt will be an artistic symbol of our connection here during the next few days, of our ongoing collaboration as we leave this place, and all the work that we do together to create a beautiful future where women and girls are empowered as we strive towards the goal of gender equity.
ICUU Women right now is the only organization of Unitarian and Universalist faith that is a truly international or global organization. There have been others before, but right now we are the only organization. So if you are curious about the world, if you are curious about learning or meeting women from other countries who share your faith, this is the place to be.
In this congregation, we celebrate the joys and the concerns and the love and the pain that comes up in our lives. And we do this often by lighting a candle of joy and remembrance. I'd like to ask the technical crew, if you could get to the slide for the Kaufmans. It was early on. I'm out of order on the deck, so let's give them a minute. Oops. No, other way, backwards. Okay. We learned this week that both Paul and Betty Kaufman have died within a couple of weeks of each other. Many of you may not remember the Kaufmans. Paul was 105 when he died, so his participation in the congregation slowed down quite a number of years ago. But they were still, for many, many years, active members here. And I've heard wonderful stories from many of you about Paul loved to come here and, I guess, tinker was the word, and work on things on the buildings and grounds. And Paul and Betty were always together. And we remember them here today in our moment of meditation. And we're going to allow ourselves a moment of joy and welcoming them in to becoming an ancestor of this congregation on this day. So join me in a moment of silence, and we will ask Mim Frater to bring us out of our moment of silence by playing a song for which she has gotten special permission from the composer to play here today. So it's an original piece, which we're going to hear for the first time here today, and we thank you for bringing it. So we honor the Kaufmans, Paul and Betty, in this moment of meditation and peace here today.
Beautiful, Mim. Thank you. The words for our second reading today come from Reverend Gordon Bucky McKeeman. Reverend McKeeman served in professional ministry for nearly 40 years in Massachusetts and Ohio, and then served as the president of Unitarian Universalist Seminary for another 5 years. He was a Universalist minister, and he died 10 years ago at the age of 93. Hell is, in fact, a burning issue. For it is the issue of separation, whether we can, with safety and impunity, set up little islands in the human experience and therefore protect ourselves against any relationship with the mainland. And Universalism says unequivocally, it cannot be done. Reverend? I'm sorry. More special music. Thank you very much. I'm sorry, banish misfortune. Banish my error.
Thank you again. Where are you going? So I know about myself that I am prone to preaching a lived Unitarian Universalism. And what does that mean? It means I don't talk much about Unitarian Universalism as a subject. I talk about the way we live our lives through a Unitarian Universalist lens. And I do this because it was always sort of, in a weird way, a pet peeve of mine that so many of the sermon topics, so much of what came from the pulpit was talking to new people who didn't really understand Unitarian Universalism. So it really stayed at the basic level a lot. And I know that I almost never go to the basic level a lot. So today, I am going to the basic level. I'm making up for some lost time. And we're going back to UU 101 here today, the very bedrock of what it means to be a Unitarian Universalist today. So for those of you who are new, still a little new around here, this is good. This is sort of a foundational moment, a foundational sort of lecture, if you want to call it that. It doesn't feel like a sermon to me, but that's okay. I'll get over it. And for those of you who have been here a while, it's a good chance to revisit your core. So here we go. To do this, we're going to look through history for a minute, and we're going to look at two separate histories, because Unitarianism and Universalism are both theologies and institutions, okay? And you have to look at them separately for them to make any sense. So let's look at them first as theologies. Unitarianism is a form of pure monotheism. You heard it in the quote from Abigail Adams earlier, right? There's only one God. It is a rejection of the then popular conception in Christianity of the Trinity. There is no Trinity. There's only one God, which means Jesus was human, which caused a lot of trouble for the Unitarians, because that was not the prevailing theology anywhere. The word is orthodoxy. That was not orthodox. Universalism, from a Christian perspective, Universalism says that Jesus died for all our sins, and therefore, as the whole punishment for sins was no longer necessary, hell is gone. Hell was abolished because of Jesus. This whole punishment for sins after you're gone, all done. Now, I want you to understand that there are other kinds of Universalist churches out there, okay? There are a lot of theologies out there that are Universalist by their nature. In other words, they didn't have a concept of hell, so there was nothing to be saved from. So they are sort of Universalist too, but in a very different way. And then there's a new form of religion out there called the Universalist Church, which is a different way of using the word universalist. It means that all churches are part of this one great big thing called church. Universalism, the one we come from, does not have anything to do with those two other churches, that kind of church. Universalism, the one we come from, is the one that says Jesus died for our sins and essentially wiped out hell. Okay? So those are the two theologies. Both of those theologies existed from the time of Jesus and even beforehand. Both of them existed much before, and especially around the Mediterranean, where what happened was, as I've mentioned before here, the story of Jesus emerged from out of Palestine, and it ran into other religions. As it started to run into other religions, some of those religions were Unitarian. They believed in only one God. Some of them were already Universalist. And most of the ones that were Universalist, of course, didn't believe that Jesus saved us from hell, but that there was no hell to begin with. So you can see that as the message of Jesus leaves Palestine, it runs into these other philosophies, and it needs help to mesh, right? And that's where you get, what happens through time is you get Christian Universalism and you get Christian Unitarianism. Came the Roman Empire, and the Roman Empire wanted Christianity as their primary religion, and they said, fine, you can be the primary religion, we want you to be the primary religion, but you've got to come up with one theology. And Unitarianism and Universalism were not the theologies that were chosen, and they were basically determined heretics. And we learned in the first reading today, was it where was the reading we learned about the burning of heretics? Yeah. So heretics were not very well looked upon. And they ended up, in many events, dead. Okay, now we're going to switch from the theologies to the institutions. So all of these institutions in the Roman Empire that were either Unitarian or Universalist, and all the people who believed in them were destroyed. That doesn't mean the theology died. People died, the institution died, but the theologies kept going. So you're going to fast forward to the United States in 1819. And this is when the institutions start to pop back up again. At that time, in the United States, the word Unitarian was a slur. It was a disparaging word used to ridicule people who were dumb enough to believe that Jesus was not a God. As the Unitarians started to emerge, they called themselves anti-Trinitarians because this word Unitarian was a word. It was essentially like saying, you dummy. So they called themselves anti-Trinitarian, which is, of course, A, a mouthful, and B, it's really difficult to define yourself by what you're not, right? It's really a weak position to take. So in 1819, this minister named William Ellery Channing, in a sermon delivered in Baltimore, Maryland, claimed the word Unitarian as a thing. He put a stake in the ground and he said, we're Unitarians. It took him 45 minutes to do it, but he said, we're Unitarians, tough. That's just what we are. And Unitarianism in the United States was sort of born. Now, Universalism was born a little bit earlier than that, and it was founded by this guy named John Murray. He came over from England, and what he basically said was that there is no hell, there never was one, or Jesus' death reconciled God with hell, with all of us, making hell no longer necessary. Either way, I don't care how you get there, but there's no hell. Now, at the time, there were two different kinds of universalism, because we don't like to make anything simple. There were two different kinds of universalism. There was universalism, and there was ultra-universalism, which sounds like that package in the store, new and improved universalism. Okay. So there was universalism. The universalists believed that hell was done away with, but you still sort of, if you were not a nice person in your life, you still went to this place like a purgatory kind of place, and you baked for a while until you were damn good and learned your lesson, and then you got to go to heaven. So there was this intermediate step in most versions of universalism. And then there were the ultra-universalists who believed, as I described earlier, and they became the predominant voice. So the ultra-universalists believed, nope, Jesus took care of heaven, hell, period, done, end of story. So the universalists were led by this guy named John Murray, and as I was talking to Jill Rose earlier in the week, she said, hey, remember that story about John Murray? And I hadn't remembered that story, but it gives you a great view of how universalism was looked at back in those days. So Jill, I'm going to tell the story you reminded me of. So there's no way of knowing if this story is true, but like so many great stories, who cares? John Murray is the minister, as I mentioned, who created universalism in the New World, or sort of got it going. And the story goes like this. He was visiting a farmer in a remote area, and the farmer was distressed about his son, who said, his farmer said his son was a ne'er-do-well drinker and a gambler, and the father was afraid for his son's soul. Murray asked the father where the son was at that point, and the father told him, well, he's probably at the bar on the other end of the woods, and he spends much of his time there, never coming home until it's too late and having had too much to drink. Murray asked the father if the son comes home the same way every night, and the farmer said yes. So Murray said to the farmer that he had an idea. Here's what we're going to do, he said. He said, go up the path that he comes home every night and build a giant bonfire right in the middle of the path. And then when he gets to the bonfire, jump on him and push him into the fire. And the farmer was aghast, declaring, how could you do that to my son who I love despite of his failings? And Murray said, do you think your heavenly Father could do such a thing to any of his beloved children? But that's exactly what we do think, isn't it? I found that story to be a great way to look at universalism. Okay, so now what happens? So throughout Unitarian and Universalist history, these institutions popped up and then they fell down. You heard, I don't know if you could hear it in the video, the woman said, we're in Transylvania, the home of Unitarianism. And I kind of went, yeah, okay, I guess. It's it's maybe one of the homes of the more recent Unitarian Universalisms. There was a king there who allowed free selection of ministers, which was considered a big deal back then. So these institutions that were wiped out along the way. And from our perspective, the one we care about was the American Unitarian Association, which started in 1825 here in the United States, up in Boston. Started in 1825, ended in 1961. And it was a split off from what we used to call the Congregationalist churches. Does that ring a bell? I don't know if they had Congregationalist churches. So that was, and the split was basically the belief in the unity of the Trinity. That was the split. And that's how you end up with a Unitarian Association of Congregations, the American Unitarian Association. The Universalist Church started in America a little bit earlier, 1793. The Universalist Church was different. It had bishops, and it was organized much like the Roman Catholic Church or the Episcopal Church, where priests were sort of put in places. Sorry, I lost my spot. So they were both very theologically different from one another, but in real life, they kept running into each other at different events, at different social actions and things like that. So in real life, they were very, very similar. The Unitarians in the 50s and 60s had a lot of fame, had people like Emerson, had people like Channing, had people that people know, Thoreau and all those people. They were pretty popular people, but they had small attendance in their churches and fewer churches. The Universalists had a lot of people, had a lot of money, but they had very little fame. The Unitarians thought the Universalists were backwoodsy because they lived together, and a lot of Universalists lived in what we would nowadays call a commune. They lived together, farming and those sorts of things. And in New England, they owned a lot of land because of that. So the Universalists had a lot of money. The most famous Universalist you probably ever heard of, besides was P.T. Barnum, was a Universalist. And that's why the elephant at Tufts University is Jumbo. I don't know if you know that whole story, right? Tufts University was the last Universalist university in America, in Boston. So these similarities caused us to get together in what was called a consolidation or a merger. It was a consolidation legally, but what do you call it, whatever you want to. We got together, and that happened in 1961. So what are we left with? We're left with a religion, Unitarian Universalism, that in its name has two theologies, which is kind of odd for a religion that became a non-creedal faith, right? So right in the name is two different theologies. The reality of this is that I doubt that any of you are here today because we reject the Trinity. I doubt that any of you are here because we reject hell. Because if you reject hell, it might be nice to be in a church that also rejects hell, but that's probably not, like, we don't have it on the banner, no hell here, right? That's not the way we attract people. The reality is that most of you are here today because of how we are together, how we behave together, how we hold ourselves out in the wider world. And one of the most important things that we do is we are a non-creedal faith. What that means is that we don't hold you up to anything. You don't have to say, we don't hand you a piece of paper and say, here, memorize this and tell me you believe it. If you believe it, then you can come and join us. We don't do that. We are a non-creedal faith. That does not mean we do not believe in anything, and that does not mean that we believe in everything either, right? I got that once in the same sentence once. Someone accused me of believing in nothing and everything in the exact same sentence, which I said, honey, you got to pick one of those. Can't have both. So we are a faith, a religion. The result of this, we are a faith, a religion with more questions than answers, which is really frustrating to some people. We are a faith in which revelation is not sealed. Okay? What does that mean? Some faiths believe that revelation is sealed. Everything you need to know is in this book, whatever the book is. We do not believe that. We believe we are a faith that has come to balance tradition in a very different way. We still honor tradition, but we are not anchored by tradition. We have it, we love it, we honor it, but we are not afraid to move off of that tradition. That's why they call Unitarian Universalism a living tradition. It's right, the name of your book, the name of your hymnal is a living tradition, right? Because it's going to keep moving and it's going to keep evolving. And to let you know where we are today, I want to read this quick letter, and more importantly, I want to read the response from this minister. I want to let you know the importance of this religion that we share. So I'm going to read you this letter, and I think we have a picture of the letter, right? Did I put that in the slides? I did? Look at me go. Here's the actual letter. You can't read it. I'll read it to you. So I'm going to read you this letter. And I want you to know up front that this letter is anti-trans. So if you don't feel like hearing an anti-trans message for the next 2 minutes, you might want to leave the room. It's a postcard, really, and this postcard was sent to the Foothills UU Church in Fort Collins, Colorado, which, if you know it, is about an hour north of Denver. And to give you some perspective, the church is on the large size for a UU church with 530 members and 329 youth. And here is the letter that was received by the church. The letter writer says, "To whom it may concern," always a good way to start a letter, "to whom it may concern, whoever, we can now rejoice that there is a voice of reason in our government regarding genders, publicly acknowledging the human nature truth that there are simply two of them, male and female. And we can be grateful that the law office of Pam Bondi is heading up the local legal case of the John and Eric Lee family against the local school district, which took the liberty to attempt to abuse and transgender their daughter without the parental knowledge. What kind of Christian love is that? Rationally speaking, you should know better than to affirm such an action. Sincerely," and then the church was nice enough to blank out the name by putting that card there. Okay, now, here's the minister's response. This tells you where Unitarian Universalism is right now. It is a beautiful response. I was so impressed. This happened this week, okay, to talk about revelation not being sealed. I was so impressed by this response that I wanted to put it in the sermon this week. And I have to tell you, My response would have been a lot shorter, probably 2 words. And I just love his response. So this was written by Sean Neil Barron, who I don't know, but he's the assistant minister at Foothills. Dear letter writer, he says, you didn't leave a return address, but if you did, this is what I would write to you. There is a love wider than fear, deeper than control, queerer than we ever were taught to expect. A love that delights in people becoming more themselves, not less. A love that whispers to every trans and non-binary kid, you are real, you are holy, and you are enough. And while many you use aren't children, I can still answer the question you pose. What kind of Christian love affirms trans kids? The kind that you actually listens to Jesus. The kind that knows fear isn't faith. The kind that understands love was never meant to be a cage. It was meant to set us free. And here's the truth. A child discovering who they are is not a tragedy. A child being safe enough to tell the truth is not a threat. A child being met with love instead of shame is not abuse. But denying them that love, that is a tragedy. That is a threat to their dignity, and that is abuse. So here's my street corner megaphone sermon. Life is vast. Love is vaster. And if your faith has to erase someone else to feel safe, it's not faith, it's fear. But the good news, my dear letter-writing friend, there is a better way. It's big and it's bright and it's free, and whether you believe in it or not, you are already held in that love. May you know it someday. May you let it in, and may you freaking sparkle. I thought that was just... So that's what happens when you let tradition go. That's what happens when you look at your core self. And if your core self is founded in love, as his faith is, that's what it looks like in real life. So I wanted to read that to you. I will let, I don't know him, but I will let Reverend Sean Neil Barron know that you applauded his work. And that, my friends, is Unitarian Universalism 101. I invite you now to join in singing our second hymn, which is a very appropriately selected hymn, if I don't say so myself, number 1053, How Could Anyone? Thank you. You may be seated. We have arrived at the part of our service where we must extinguish our chalice flame. I invite Anne to come and extinguish our flame for us. The flame has served as a reminder to us here that our time together this morning is sacred, a time set apart. In the words of Reverend Brian Keeley, the chalice is now extinguished, but its light lives on in the hearts and minds and souls of each one of you. Carry that flame with you as you leave this place and share it with those you know, with those you love, and most especially with those you have yet to meet. Amen. I invite you all to take a 10-minute break. We'll reconvene here. We're a little late today. We're a little long today. We got started late. So let's say, could we come back at 12:20 for the State of the Church? We'll be out by 1. It's not going to be that long, but I would love for everyone who can possibly stay to stay. And now we have banished misfortune to bring us out of our time. Say what? Oh. Are we going to recess? Oh, are we going to? Okay, we can recess. Okay. Sorry. Sorry.
Go now in peace.